Okay, so in this video, we're going to be using Vectr to make a cookie monster, and a name tag. So we're going to try and use as many vector skills as we can. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is the Vectr screen. Now the first thing we're going to do is create the cookie. So we're going to go off to the left side here with these tools, and we're going to go to shapes. So we're going to left click on shapes, and we're going to select the circle. You can see there's other shape options as well. Now once you've left clicked on the circle, you see that nothing's happened yet, so you just need to left click on the screen and your shape will appear. Okay, so to move it around, you can see this 4-directional arrow here. So if you left click and hold, it allows you to move the shape around on the screen. And to resize the shape, you can use any of these dots at the side. I'm going to use the corner dot so that it changes the left and right size and the up and down size at the same time and keeps it as a perfect circle. If I changed it with these dots, it would turn into a bit more of an oval. So let's go with that. Okay, so that looks like a good size for a cookie. Now we need to change the color. So we're going to go over here to the right hand side, and you can see there's a range of options here for editing our shape. Just to show you, if we do click off the shape, then those options disappear because we're no longer editing that shape. So we do need to click onto it. So all we do is hover over it. These arrows will appear, and you just left click and it takes you back onto the shape. So we want to change the main color of the shape. So the first thing we're going to do is go to fills. So hover over the brown circle here, left click, and it takes us into this menu. So there's a few ways to change colors in this menu. The first one is just simply by selecting a new color, and the second one is by dragging this circle along the slider. So when you're doing that, remember to hold down the left click, otherwise it would just simply not do anything. Okay, so I'm going to be looking for a sort of browny color for the cookie. So I've gone to the orange section, and now I'm going to change the shade. So you can see there's another circle up here which is currently set at the top there. So I'm going to left click and hold on that and bring it down towards the cookie colors. So I think that brown looks like a good color for a cookie. So we've still, however, got a pink border, which obviously cookies wouldn't normally have. So if I wanted to change the color of that border, I'd simply go to the border settings and go to the pink circle, and similar to the other one, I could change the color in there. However, for this, I don't think we need a border. So what we're going to do is go to the size option here, and it's currently set to 1px, so 1 pixel, and we're simply going to remove it. So if I wanted to enlarge the size of the border, I could use the up arrow here, and you can see the border's increasing in size. I'm going to use the down arrow and put it to 0, and you can see the border's disappeared. Okay, so if we wanted to change the opacity of the cookie, then we could do that as well. And you can see if we wanted a see-through cookie, we could just simply use this slider here. Obviously we want it to be visible, so we're going to leave that at 100%. And we could also create a shadow for our cookie using these settings here. So offset X and offset Y. X being left to right, Y being up and down. And we could add a shadow if we wanted to as well. However, again, we're just going to leave those settings at 0 so that there is no shadow on the cookie, but just to let you know how to use those tools if you need them in your future projects. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to take a bite out of the cookie, because it is a cookie monster challenge, so there definitely would be a bite out of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to shapes, left click, and we're going to create a new shape. So we're going to need 3 of these, so I'm going to resize it down. And when you need multiple of the same thing, rather than creating it multiple times, what you can also do is right click on your mouse, and you can see this option appear. So that's a right click. I'll go to copy, left click on copy, one more right click and go to paste, and you can see another one's appeared. So I'm going to do the same again. So right click, copy, right click, paste, sorry, there we are. Okay, so now we've got 3 of these. I'm going to make them overlap with our cookie shape. So let's move them over here. So each of these is going to represent one part of the bite out of the cookie in a moment. So what you want to do is just overlap them slightly with the edge of the cookie, like so. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to select all 4 of these shapes at the same time. So you can see if I select just one of these shapes, I've only got 4 options here, which are flip horizontally and vertically, and move center back and center front. So if I use center front, you can see that the cookie is now overlapping that circle. So I'm going to use center back to make sure the cookie's at the back. So no need to mess with these settings. It should be like this when you've created the shapes. But just again to let you know how they work. Now what I want to do is select all of these shapes together. So all I need to do is left click and hold it down, and you can see this box appear. And when you've highlighted all of the shapes, you just let go and it will select everything together. So now instead of just these 4 options, we've also got 4 more options, which are unite and add, subtract, intersect, and exclude. So for this video we want to use subtract, and what that's going to do is remove these sections where it's overlapping our cookie shape. So I'll show you now. So I'm going to press subtract, and we've had a bite out of our cookie there. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is create some chocolate chips for our cookie. So we're going to go back to shapes. We're going to go to the circle shape. Going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to go back over to fills that we've just seen and change the color to a chocolate chip color. There we are. And I'm going to remove the border like so. So all of those things we did for the cookie, we're just doing them again for this shape. Okay, so now what I want to do is edit the shape of this chocolate chip, because very rarely will they be perfectly round. So what I need to do is double click on the shape. So that's a double left click, and you can see the dots that were around it for resizing have now changed to these little squares. So what these do, if you hover over one of the squares and left click and hold, you can see that you can adjust the shape of your shape. So I'm going to make a few changes to this one. There we are. So that is my chocolate chip. And what I want to do is create a few more of these. So I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to press copy. And I'm going to right click and press paste. So I've got 2. I'm going to go for 4 of these. Right click, copy, right click, paste again. And right click, copy, right click, paste. So you don't actually need to press copy and paste every time. I'm just doing that to show you multiple times how to do that, just in case you missed it. But once you've copied it once, you can just keep pressing paste if you want to, and it will create more of the same thing. So whichever way you prefer. If at any point you need to delete something out of here, you can just click on it and press the DEL or delete key on your keyboard. Okay, so we've got our first chocolate chips. I'm happy with that one. So I'm just going to resize it down, again using these little dots around the outside, and pop it onto the cookie. The next one, I'm going to do something slightly different with it. So I'm just going to double click again. And this time, rather than using the 4 points which were already there, I'm going to add my own new point onto this one. So you can see if I just hover over the edge, this point appears. So all I have to do is left click and it will create this point for me. So it's got two little dots to the sides of it. So if I just left click and hold on that, you can see what that does. It allows me to swirl the edges. So that might be useful if you're creating, for example, a droplet. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that. Just going to click off it, and then I'm just going to click back on it so I can resize it. That one looks good. This one, I'm going to just change it slightly again. Bit more of a square one. There we are. And finally, I think I'll leave that one the same as the first one. So let's pop that one there, and that one can go there. I think that one's probably a little bit big, so I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. Again, all of this comes down to your design preferences. Personally, I just think that would look a bit better. Okay, so I'm happy enough with that. So what I'm going to do now is move this cookie over here. So you can see what happens. It will leave the chocolate chips behind. So that we don't want that, because that's one image that we're trying to keep together. So what we're going to do is left click and hold like we did previously. Highlight all of the shapes we've just made. And we're going to right click and go to the group option. So we're going to press group. And now you can see that it will move together. So that was highlight all of it using that. Left click and drag, and then right click and press group, and you can see you can also ungroup them again if you want to. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create the cookie monster. So we're going to go back to shapes, back to circle, and we're going to start by creating the eyes. So it's going to make that a little bit smaller. I'm going to go to fill colors and select white, and for the border I'm going to go back to borders, and I'm going to select a black border for the eye. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is the pupil of the eye. So I'm going to go back to shapes again on the left hand side here, create another circle and make it smaller than this one, and I'm going to go back over to fills and press black, and for the border black as well. Okay, so we have ourselves an eye, and you can see when you're moving it around within each other, these lines pop up to try and help you align it properly. So that's perfectly in the center. Okay, so I'm going to again highlight both of those at the same time. So left click and drag, and right click and use the grouping tool again to make our shape all one piece. And then I'm going to right click again and press copy, and right click and press paste. So now we have two eyes. Okay, so let's make those slightly smaller and just make sure they're the same size. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is draw the Cookie Monster's face, and it's a bit of an odd shape because it's quite a furry creature, so I'm going to try and draw this myself. So I'm going to go over to the left hand side again to the pen tool, which is like a ballpoint pen. Click on that. Now when you use the pen tool, you basically select the points at which you want the line to stop and start. So the first one, I'm just going to left click as an example, and you can see now when I move the mouse around, there's a line that follows it. So next thing I'm going to do is click about here, and you can see again it just carries on from there. So I'm going to go to there. Now it's a furry creature, so I'm going to do a little bit of sort of zigzagging to sort of represent the fluffiness of his face. Okay, I think that'll do. And then sort of move across the bottom. Go to about there. There we are. Okay, and just to finish it, I'm just going to go back to the starting point and click again, and you can see now it's created the shape for me. So I'm not 100% happy with that, so I'm just going to double click on the shape, and again you can see it's created all the points for me to edit with. I'm going to add an extra one here by hovering over the edge and just make that slightly more rounded and friendlier. And then I'm going to do a similar kind of thing up here, add one in there. So again, it's up to you how you want the face to look, but yeah, that's a sort of general idea for a design that you can do. Obviously it's not going to be exactly like that, but try and get it as close to that as you can. Okay, so click off there, and the Cookie Monster's face is blue, so I'm going to go to fill colors again. You can see it's currently set to white, and I'm going to select this blue on the bottom row because I think that's a pretty good blue for the Cookie Monster. There we go. Okay, so I'll just put that closer to his eyes. Might move his eyes a bit closer together. There we are. Okay, so now he's just missing a mouth. So I'm going to go back over here to the left to the pen tool, and I'm going to create quite a simple shape, and then we're going to edit it to make it look a bit more smiley. So just simply left clicking when you want the line to stop, so think about there, and then I want that to join back together at the beginning. You can see that that finishes the shape off. I'm going to double click, and I'm just going to add an extra point here and create a slightly more rounded smile, and then I'm going to add a point here and just move the mouth inwards slightly like that. There we are. Okay, so click off there. So we've got ourselves a mouth, and now we just need to colour that in, make that black, and then I'm just going to drag that onto there. So there's our Cookie Monster. A bit rudimentary, but definitely do the job for our challenge. So now I'm just going to group all of these together and make them into one solid shape. So left click and drag, highlight the Cookie Monster, right click and press group again, and now you've got yourself a Cookie Monster face you can move around. Okay, so the final thing we're going to do is put the Cookie Monster's slogan, cookies, at the bottom of the screen. So go back to the left hand side tools here, and we're going to select text, and then you just simply left click on that and left click here, and a box that states text will appear. So click into that, and you can delete the contents like so. Okay, so now what we're going to do is write our slogan, which is cookies, and I'm going to add some extra E's and S's in there to make it look more like the Cookie Monster saying it. Okay, so this text though is a little bit on the small side, so you can see here we've got a selection of text options on the right hand side. So I'm going to go to the size option, and I'm going to make that slightly larger. So it's got an up and a down arrow again, or you can highlight and type the figure that you want. Again, I prefer to use the up and down arrow so that I can see the change as I'm doing it. Okay, I think 27 looks good, so let's leave it at that. And then I want to change the font, so I'm going to click on Open Sans. Now I've selected for my design a font called Monotone, which I think looks quite good, but you can use whatever font that you would like. But I recommend Monotone because it's quite a fun one. There we are. And okay, so we've got Monotone selected. Sometimes you do have options in here in this drop down to say make the font bold or italics, but because Monotone's already quite funky, it doesn't have any additional options, so we just leave that section. You can change letter spacing as well, so if I wanted to make the words spread out a little bit more, maybe if you're doing a logo design you need to fill some space in, you can increase the letter spacing. You can increase the line height as well, so feel free to play around with those settings if you want to. And I'm going to change the color of the text as well. So I'm going to go back to fills, click on the black circle there, and just change it to the same color as the Cookie Monster. We don't have a border on it at the moment. It's got a very small border, so I'm just going to set that down to 0, but it wasn't noticeable, so we could have left that. And then I'm going to add a shadow to the text. So again, I'm going to use the offset X, which is the left to right, and I'm going to set that to 10. Actually, I'm going to set it to 15. And offset Y, which is the up and down axis, and I'm going to set that to 15 pixels as well, maybe 20 pixels just to get it off our current wording. 23 pixels we're on, so that's fine, and I can move that across a little bit more as well. So if we wanted to blur the shadow, we could use the blur feature here. You can see it goes a little bit blurrier, like a shadow might be. I think that looks quite good actually, so I might just leave that blur on. And if I wanted to again change the amount of see-throughness that we have, the opacity of the shape, then we could do that as well. So this is text in this case, sorry, but we'll leave that at 100% for this. So there's your Cookie Monster, your cookie, and your slogan at the bottom there. So give it a go and see how you get on. I look forward to seeing what you create.